Good day everyone, it's Caitlin, and today we are talking about how to take your regular bodice pattern and turning it into a wrapper. Alright, hello and welcome. So I have a giant pile of fabric here. I need a cotton dress for an event, and I got this from my friend Susan, who just gave it to me, and started sewing with it on the weekend that I needed it, and realized it was going to be too short for me as a dress because someone previous to Susan had already cut out, well, the back and the skirt, and it was going to be far too short for me to wear as a dress, but I can make it as a wrapper. So I put it aside, dealt with it for the weekend that I didn't have a cotton dress, and we're going to come back and we're going to turn this into an actual wrapper. And so let's see what we have here. And this looks like it's sewn together, so this looks like the skirt. We'll go through that in a second. I have a little bit of extra fabric, a couple yards. This is what I brought for the facing, and this is what was cut out and sewn together. Oops. Basically it was just this. So it's a nice little yoked bodice. So there's the top and there's a little bit of a gathered back, and it does have the waist tie already there, although it's, I think, only a tie to go around. Is you're going to use belt buckle. It's not going to tie, basically, which is fine with me, I guess. So this is actually not my pattern. Someone else cut this out, and it's not going to fit me the way it is. So what I'm going to start with is I have my bodice pattern for the back. And so I'm going to set this together, and hopefully it's the same size, and I can actually use this piece since, you know, part of the work's already been done. Alright, so top, I took this off. We're going to put it back on to where this is the front side, because I feel like I like this one little stripe being the belt as opposed to half of that and this part. Actually, I am going to cut this down and use this as my lining, because it's going to be caught up with this, and this is going to be partially, well, it's going to have its self-lining. One day I need to buy a dress that's already done and do a video on how to refit a dress to you, because I feel like that would be super helpful for a lot of people. Yeah, let me know in the comments whether that would actually be useful or not. I feel like it would be, but sometimes I just, you know, don't know what y'all actually need. I feel like before I sew this, I want to go ahead and sew the side seams, which means I need to cut out a front first. The front part is going to be the tricky part. So turning a dress pattern into a wrapper, you can do it a lot of different ways. The backs are usually going to be the same as a dress, so you can probably cut your back the same way you would typically do so. The fronts are where it's going to change. Sometimes it's as simple as cutting your dress from about here-ish all the way down the skirt, and then adding in a little panel, say 2 to 3 inches wide on either side, and sewing it in, and that gives you that extra space to where you can fit it with a belt and have it a little bit more wrapper-like. But it stops being a dress at that point, so you can't actually use it for dress activities. That's not a way to extend a dress, but it is a way to make a wrapper from a dress. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. This way we're going to actually make a wrapper from our dress pattern, and it's going to be very loose in the front, but then fit it in the sides and back. I fold it over like this. So here, what I'm trying to do is measure how long the skirt is. I'm going to go ahead and cut that. That's going to be the length of my skirt. Also going to cut this to about right here. We'll go straight down from here. So this is this part that's going to be unfitted. About where my darts and gathers would be if I actually pulled in this dress. This is going to be stitched to a skirt as normal. So I kind of just guesstimated. It doesn't have to be exact. But I'm going to cut an exact number one of these. I have to make sure that it is going to be for the left instead of the right, because I cut this one as a right. Alright, so fun times. I don't know if you noticed, but I made a very big mistake. It actually wasn't a mistake. So if you wanted just a regular dress-like wrapper, that's how you do it. I'm making a yoked bodice. We had the whole conversation about how this was a yoke, and somehow I still forgot. So I'm fixing it by piecing it, which is a perfectly period acceptable solution. So you can see here, this is a finished one now. So it's all nicely gathered here, which gives us a whole lot more space in the front to grow and move around, which is awesome. So we need to turn this into a much more gathered bodice now. So I took that bodice pattern that we already did, and I literally just cut right across it, about where I wanted the yoke to go, and literally just snipped across, just like that. And now I have what can be a yoke bodice if I add more fabric to it. So I have these panels that I'm pretty sure the original person was going to be make as facings, and they work pretty well. They're just not quite long enough, so we're having to piece a little bit more, but that's okay. We like piecing. They're up. You can see it's just a little bit short. So I just need a little bit piece to go from a little square, basically, or rectangle. First, I already have this kind cut out, and I think I'm going to cut some sleeves very quickly, just because this is a good length for good width for sleeves. I'm going to get those out of the way. This is my next biggest thing to cut. Now I can focus on getting a scrap for this. I want to make sure I get my sleeves full before I start cutting out little bits everywhere. Let's see, that's plenty wide. Okay, cool. Let's see. We're going to sew this like this first. Get a nice little seam going. And then we'll stitch this long thing to this. And that'll give me a nice big piece that we can then gather at the top to fit into the top. I didn't line the front, I just didn't line the whole rest of the bodice because I didn't want to line all the way down to the skirt. So just the top part is lined. It's all nicely full and gathered, so we'll just go ahead and sew this. So now we can actually stitch all the pieces together. I have the back. Just stick all these pieces together at the shoulder and sides. And we can stitch it up as normal. And finally, the other half of the bodice, we'll stitch that together too, so we'll have a completed little top. I'm now going to sew this belt to this back. Now we have this really funky looking thing with like a bodice with this thing hanging off. So that's fun. And I think I'm going to do before I do anything else is go ahead and start sewing the skirt on. Which is going to be, the skirt's already sewn together in terms of the panels are stitched together. There's 3 panels. I also did cut out something I need to make into a pocket. Which I will, let's go ahead and do that. Let's do that first. That way whenever I sew this thing, I will have a pocket to put in it. Alright, let's start sewing the skirt together. So here's one of the side front panels. And this is probably the side I want the pocket in. And we'll put the pocket in right around here-ish. Still need to add piping right against this raw edge here. I think I can do this part first. So I'm going to just sew skirt seams, put pockets in like we normally do. And we'll move right along into finishing this wrapper. Alright, so I sewed the back skirt to the front side of the skirt. So now I got a really funky looking thing with like the skirt hanging off. So like I have the skirt or the dress, and then I have the front, and then it's sewn to the back skirt. It's got back skirt's not attached to the back bodice yet, so it looks really funky now. But that's okay. So now what I'm going to do for mine is going to turn under the top as I need. This one usually needs to be about 1.5 inches turned under, which I'm going to fold in half because most of this is not there's a raw edge here, so I need to be careful of that. Now I'm also going to need to sew the front skirts together, because this particular style wrapper doesn't open in the front, which you can have that style wrapper. If you want yours open in the front, I would put it facing, probably of the self fabric. That way, if the wrapper flipped open, you would still see self fabric. 6 inches or so, you know, something like that, across, and then stitch it all the way up and down the skirt, and that way, if your wrapper flipped over when wearing, you would see the fashion fabric. So I just marked basically wherever my normal dresses open and close on the skirt, that's skirt placket opening, that's what I marked. And we'll just sew this. At this point, I'm going to do some normal bodice stuff, such as piping the neckline. I do need to face the skirt, as we would normally do, turn under this neckline and that sort of thing. And we'll come back for, you know, sleeves and closures. Alright, now basically the entire dress is mostly done. We do need to put in closures, which the original that I was copying did buttons, and I have nearly exact buttons somewhere in this house. I spent most of the morning looking for them, and I can't find them. We're going to do just one hook and eye at the top, and the rest of this is going to be held together with the belt. And that's minimal work on my part to do these hooks and eyes, and also... and when I find my buttons, then I can just go ahead and do that without having to take really anything out, except for one hook and eye. Wrapper buttons don't seem to be, when you are doing buttons for wrappers, they don't seem to be extremely close together. Even compared to dresses, they tend to be a little bit further apart. Looking at originals is always a really good plan. Of course, there are wrappers that were made from dresses, and sometimes those closures just were left alone, and other times they were changed out. And there's so many variety with wrappers. There isn't just one way to make a wrapper. There's not even 10 ways to make a wrapper. There's probably hundreds of ways to make a wrapper. That's probably the easiest way to turn your dress pattern into a wrapper, if that's what you wanted. Something a little bit more adjustable, something that looks like a dress, but it's also a wrapper. And of course, we already talked about using the stripes, extending it out that way, putting the panels here, kind of all the way down to make it a little bit looser than say the dress, but otherwise it's still just basically a dress. So yeah, this one's a little bit more versatile in the fact that it has bishop sleeves, which I can use for a little bit earlier than just like 62 and later as the coat sleeves were. So yeah, this one's a little bit more versatile in time period. It's going to make a great pregnancy dress one day because there's a lot of fabric here, and even up here, a lot of fabric. So if you have a fitted bodice pattern and you're looking to make a wrapper, hopefully that gave you some tips and tricks on how to turn your bodice pattern into a wrapper pattern very simply, without a lot of work, fuss, or measuring. All I had to do is measure the skirt and just keep extending it. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today as we made our little Greek key striped wrapper for the mid-19th century. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Click that little bell notification so you're notified anytime I upload a new video. Do notice that you can now join the channel, and there are special perks and privileges for those who do, so please check out that link down below. And as always, have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here in the next video.